Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name's David. We are here at the National Guard Professional Education Center. I'm joined with Maddie, who's the Deputy Director of the Holistic Health and Fitness Program here, and I am the Chaplain here at the Professional Education Center. And thanks for joining us as we dive into spiritual fitness today. The goal of this podcast is, after the brief you sat through today, is to take a deeper dive into spirituality, what it looks like in real life, right? Lots of times we talk about all these concepts or philosophies, but how do we really apply them to get the most out of it and to be healthy? Because there's no such thing as physical health or mental health or financial health or social health. There's really just health. And when we're out of balance in any of those areas, we are out of balance. And we'll dive a little bit more into that through the next couple episodes that we do. So thanks for coming on and talking with me, Maddie.
Thanks, Chaplain Woodward. I like what you said about being out of balance with health, because I think one of the most maybe overlooked or underemphasized areas of health, and specifically for this sake, holistic health and fitness, since it's one of our domains, is the spiritual fitness domain. And so I think it'll be really beneficial for you to guide us through a little bit more about what this domain encompasses and how it can be implemented by soldiers, by humans, by our communities in order to create that more full picture of health. So we're excited to dive in, and I appreciate your time this morning. So getting right into it, rather, tell us a little bit more about what spiritual fitness is. When people hear that, what does it mean?
Yeah, so I think definitely in the Army, the fitness side kind of throws people off, right? Because that's just kind of our lingo. But the spiritual side, people have been dealing with since the beginning of time. And sadly, in our culture, I'd say at least the American culture and even Western civilization, the spiritual aspect of our lives has been on life support, if hasn't practically died for quite some time now. So I think as we dive back into that as a culture and as a people, we can really see a lot of quick growth as we implement. Because, right, even on the physical side, when we get back into exercise for a while, lots of times we see a lot of quick gains because we're going from nothing to getting some type of core strength again that just changes everything. And we see a lot of growth. And I'm excited to see a lot of spiritual growth as we implement these principles off the bat. And then as we consistently apply them, we will see consistent, sustainable growth to where we get to an operating level of spiritual fitness. So the spiritual side is what we can't not know. So what we can't not know is that when we go to bed at night, when we sleep well, whatever of our hard, crusty persona that we put out when we're around other people, when we finally get that to settle down and we're left with ourselves at the end of the day, what we can't not know is some of these core principles really are at the core of who we are and where we get our value. Our spiritual is our connection with some type of higher power, and then our connection with those around us. And we'll dive more into this in episode 2, but the spiritual fitness is that connection with a higher power, and I call that our vertical spiritual fitness, right? Because it's us and a higher power. So it's just easy to remember it that way. Because if all we do is we focus on ourselves, or we think humanity is the end-all be-all, first of all, then we have no such thing as objective truth. And for anyone who says there's not objective truth, that's a self-defeating statement, because now you're saying that you have the truth, that there's no truth. So you can't say there is no objective truth. That's a self-defeating statement. There is objective truth, and so as we find where that objective truth comes from, that's the connection with the higher power. Well, I have the ultimate truth. Okay. Well, then whatever I says goes, right? Then we can't have any type of civilization, because if mankind is the end-all be-all, if that's where we get our truth from, then whatever I says goes. So if I want to jump across this table, slit your throat, and you're like, well, that's bad. Well, says who, right? I have truth. This is my truth. Nothing pet peeves me more than when someone says it's my truth. No, there's your perspective, and you're entitled to your opinions and your perspectives, but there's only the truth that we should all be seeking. And for most of mankind, we have been seeking out truth to some level or another. And it's really over the last decade or so that really this rise in the we have truth has really kind of come to the forefront of our culture. And the more we do that, and then we look around to our left and our right and back at ourselves in the mirror, and we wonder why we're so empty when we're trying to find fulfillment in something that can't bring us fulfillment. But as we do look to that higher power, whatever that looks like for you, and we can tell what that looks like for us by what we spend our time and our energy on is currently what we're prioritizing as a higher power. Whether that's the higher power or the true higher power or the right higher power, we can see, right? So if I spend most of my time, let's pick, stick the culture in the gut just from the get-go. If I'm spending most of my time following my favorite sports team and I'm spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a season, and then I look around, I'm like, where am I spending my time, my energy, my money? And that is my top priority. Is this particular sports team or organization truly the highest power, higher priority that I should be spending all this energy on? And if the answer is no, then we need to look, and we'll jump into this into the third episode of reprioritizing and changing so that we can get the most meaning out of our lives, and not only most meaning out of our lives, but that we can build a group of people that we are all working together on a similar goal to not only get the most out of life, but to spread the most good and to alleviate the most unnecessary suffering we can. And we only get that when we are working on a higher goal that's unified by a higher power. Now, me as the chaplain, I say that's God. For me as a Christian chaplain, I say that's God and Jesus. If that already turned you off, then cool your jets, apply it to yourself, and this is where you need to take some time and figure out, what is my top priority? What is my higher power? Is it nature? Is it the universe? Is it the creator of the universe, but I don't know who that is or what that looks like? Well, maybe we need to invest a little more time. If this really is the higher power, one of the best things that we can do, and again, we'll dive more into this in another episode, striving to understand that higher power and how it works, and that will build spiritual momentum. So spiritual fitness is as we have this connection to a higher power, and then we have a connection with those around us, especially as we all focus on that higher power, and we get to a level of functionality. That is spiritual fitness. And if we can get to the point where we can function on a level that we can have the resilience and rebound through the hell that is this mortal life, and if it's not hell yet, just wait, it will come. How are we going to get through this? Well, hopefully we can get through it with a connection and a goal set on a higher power with those around us that we love and care about, and we can come through that flame on the other side together, as whole as we possibly can be, while alleviating as much unnecessary suffering around us as we can. And if that's not a good enough goal, what are you going to replace that with? And that's spiritual fitness. How can we build those connections with the higher power, those around us, and come off conqueror as we go through life? So that's the goal, is to get to that level of spiritual fitness. And the other great thing about spiritual fitness is, even when there's pandemonium and craziness around us, that high level of functioning, this is how you know if you're spiritually fit. If there's pandemonium going on around you, whether it's in your personal life, public life, whatever, and you are still at peace with yourself, even though there's turmoil around you, and you're still alleviating as much unnecessary suffering as possible. That's when you can know that you're spiritually fit. And then you'll also have the strength to invite those around us to partake of the goodness that you have.
Yeah, I like that perspective, especially because I think a lot of people can relate to the fact when there is turmoil going on, when there is chaos or stress, perceived, real danger, whatever it might be, when there's that individual around you in the same room or on the phone with you or on your team that remains calm and collected and can acknowledge that the time is challenging, but can also be realistic and still think clearly, it has this effect on everyone around them that brings everyone else into control. And so it is a powerful way of being healthy, right? Because it's a health that spreads when it exists. I had some questions about vertical fitness or vertical spirituality.
Sure.
With regards to that, the concept makes a lot of sense. What I'd like you to do is differentiate between what you said about when we decide, if mankind is saying that their truth is their truth, right? My truth. What is the difference between individuals doing that and everyone seeking out a different higher power, right? Because all of those truths would be different. So how does it look different? And how is it better, even if people are seeking different higher powers than just having different self-truths?
Yeah, so a higher power, right? This is where we get into what should we be seeking? Because I would say, even from a Christian chaplain perspective, there are a lot of higher power options. And so, which one should we be seeking? Whether it is, I've worked with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, and whether it's some of the Wiccans that I've worked with, right? Are they, as they worship the earth and different elements or aspects of the earth, are they seeking out ones that are alleviating unnecessary suffering, right? Which I would say is some of the best good that we can do. I'm not against alleviating all suffering, but I'm against alleviating unnecessary suffering. And so as we seek a higher power that helps us do that is one of the definitions of what is good. And so lots of times I hear people use the saying of, well, that's my truth, to cover things that they can change and want to take an excuse of the lazy way out, right? Because if I say, well, it's my truth that I need to, be covered in Cheeto dust on my couch and sit here and watch some more commercials, okay, so that's your opinion, but if that's, well, my truth is that spiritual fitness or physical fitness. Well, coming from your nursing background, what's your response to like, well, I feel physically fit even though I'm morbidly obese and I've put down 4 bags of Cheetos today. Well, you can have your opinion, but that's not a truth. And it's the same thing on the spiritual front as we are trying to connect to a higher power and do good. One of my favorite scriptures from the Bible is when it says that Jesus went about doing good. And that's where we have to have a connection to a higher power that defines what is good, right? Right now in the Army, and I come from on the enlisted side, I was a sergeant with the artillery. I like blowing things up, combat MOS, and we're always training for the fight, right? When not only my life's on the line, but my buddies to my left and my right, all around us as a forward observer, you got a lot of people depending on you calling in accurate fires. And so with that, what is good when all this is going on and maybe people on the other side feel like they're doing good and that's their truth? Again, there's no such thing as your truth or my truth. Maybe the truth is that we are trying to defend our families or our rights or our beliefs. That may be the truth, but that's not your truth. There is no such thing as your truth or my truth unless my truth or your truth is the truth, which comes from a higher power. And what determines whether something's good or not is that it leads to a good consequence. And that's another thing we'll get into in another one of the episodes, is to begin with the end in mind. If you're familiar with Stephen Covey, revolutionized a lot of aspects of our world, but definitely the business world with his 7 habits of highly successful people. And his habit number 2 is to begin with the end in mind. And so that's what determines whether something's good or not, is the consequence that's attached to that choice. And is it building someone up? Is it bettering them? Is it alleviating unnecessary suffering? Is it helping the world be fulfilled? Is it meeting needs to better those around us? And if so, that's good. And we can always find those types of things from a higher power that is disseminating truth that steps over the times and boundaries of obstacles, whether the obstacle is time itself, mortality, or other confusion going on around us. That's a lot. Sorry. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does make a lot of sense. And just to recap from my understanding of that covering, when you have spiritual fitness, it's not so much what the entity is that you're looking up to for that vertical spirituality. It's more the outcome of your behaviors, your actions, your perspectives, and your beliefs that dictate whether you're on the right path or not.
I'd say it's a combination of both, if I understand you right, because maybe what I have as my higher power, maybe as I keep studying and I keep applying, I just need to shift fire a little bit, right? Maybe I'm onto something good, but maybe I have a better understanding of, let's just call the higher power God. Whatever that means to you, whether God is the earth or God is a being, or for me, I'd say he is our spiritual father in heaven, and that we're two-part beings with a body and a soul or a spirit, and God is the father of our spirits, and we're all sons and daughters of God. Whatever that looks like, maybe I need to shift my understanding of what God is as I learn more. So I would say it's both an understanding of what the higher power is with the outcomes of our and consequences of our decisions. And it's a balance.
That makes sense. Can you provide a couple things that, as someone is taking on this spiritual fitness improvement journey, can you provide a couple of things that would give some insight into what direction they need to shift fire?
Sure. A couple things that we can shift fire off of, or things that help our vertical spirituality and building momentum there, is communication. Of whether that communication is verbal or mental, but trying to verbally or mentally reach out to a higher power and communicate with it. And I would call that prayer. Of saying, God, if you're there, I want to talk to you, and I'm willing to give up my selfish desires to know you and figure out how you work and what you do and how I can become what you would have me become. If you're the higher power, whatever you are, maybe you've created this earth, right? If there's all these creations around us, every creation, whether it's, watercolor painting from my daughter or this building we're in or the world, all creations have a creator. And I want to get to know you and how you work and maybe the higher potential that I can reach. And again, as a Christian, I'd say as a son or a daughter of God, well, if I'm a son or a daughter of God, well, then I have great worth and great potential, and I'm made in his image. How can I reach my potential? What do you want me to do? And start that in prayer and be specific. And the more specific we can be, the more specific the answers will be. Pretty much every religious tradition from the history of the world has some type of sacred text. And so I often have heard kind of the mantra, and it's not 100%, but it's a good principle to go on. If you want to talk to the higher power, pray. If you want the higher power to talk to you, get in the sacred text, or what I would call the scriptures or the Bible. Get in the sacred text, because I think it's a little redundant, right? We don't like this if we already tell someone something and they're like, and then they ask us again, and they ask us again. Well, I've already given you the answers. So how bad do you want to know? Do you want to know bad enough to get this direction in your life bad enough to sacrifice your time and your energy to get into what I've already told you? And again, from the Christian perspective, if God's already told us, then I should probably be in his scriptures every day, studying them out and seeing what that looks like. Now, I also believe that the higher power can talk with us on an individual level, person to person, right? One-on-one. And so as we pray, it's not like we're ordering our next, shopping cart on Amazon where we click what we want, go to the shopping cart, click buy and leave, right? Hopefully, as we're communicating with a higher power, or what I would call God, we talk to God and then we set aside a time to listen. And I've found that God rarely speaks with a heavy hand or by shaking us or trying to get our attention. And if we're distracted, he often speaks so gently that if we're preoccupied, we won't even know that communication's there. And so as we pray, if we'll take time to listen, those are some really some things that we can focus on to build and to pivot our connection with the higher power. I'd say those are the top two things, really coupled with a third of gratitude. The more we have the attitude of gratitude, it changes everything. And the more grateful we are, then I really think that is a catalyst for recognizing, A, that there is a higher power, that there's something outside of ourselves, but also B, it changes our attitude to where we are more receptive to more. And it certainly doesn't hurt that people want to be around grateful people too, right? No one wants to be around the Debbie Downer, the pessimist who's just ungrateful. That definitely removes incentives for people to want to be around you and to do nice things for you too. So that certainly doesn't hurt. All right, because the vertical dimension and the horizontal dimension are definitely connected. But gratitude and everything. I read a book, it's definitely on my top 3 to 5 books, is The Hiding Place, about Corrie ten Boom, Dutch woman during World War II. Eventually, after being one of the heads of the underground rescuing Jews from Holland in World War II, she and her family were put in concentration camps. And one night, her sister's praying and just expressing gratitude for everything, and is even grateful for the bed bugs. And Corey in her mind is like, no, how on earth could you be grateful for the bed bugs? And lo and behold, Corey survives the concentration camps and afterwards meets one of the prison guards. And through a conversation, he says, we know you all, they'd smuggled a Bible in. We all know that you all were holding Bible study in there, but the bed bugs were so bad, no one wanted to go in there and break them up. And just, we didn't want to be a part of that because the bed bugs were so bad. And so really gratitude and everything, it's not about necessarily being grateful. It's about changing our heart and mind. And that change of attitude and perspective invites spiritual growth.
I like a lot of what you said there for a number of reasons, but I'll highlight one, and it's that it puts the autonomy back into the individual. So my background being more on the nutritional physical domains, right? There are a lot of excuses that float around those realms, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but probably in the spiritual domain as well.
100%.
And so to hear that the primary things that we're doing in order to strengthen our spiritual fitness are communication, listening, gratitude, all of those are things that we can action as individuals every single day. We don't have to wait on someone else to do it for us. There is no easy button for it. It takes effort. It takes consistent effort. It takes discipline. And I think that's such an important point that you put out there, and one that I really like, because you can look at that one of two ways. Coming back to gratitude a little bit, you can look at that as daunting or tiring, or, oh, that's too hard. You know, I'm going to use your example, sit here in my Cheeto dust and look up to my higher power of a sports team, which, you know, nothing wrong with watching athletics.
Sure.
Love it.
I've done sports. I enjoy it.
Or you can look at it as an endless number of opportunities that you have that no one else can take away from you to control how you build your spiritual fitness. And that, I think, is so empowering. When you realize that all of these domains, and today we're specifically discussing spiritual fitness, so I'll use spiritual fitness as the example. When you realize that improving and building your spiritual fitness is 100% within your control, and it is your responsibility to do so. There are guides out there that exist, but it's on all of us to do it. I think that if you can change your perspective and look at that less as a job to do and more of an opportunity to capitalize on, that can be really powerful.
Yeah, and I love the opportunities, and then some of the assessments that we have linked to the episode as well is we have CHAMP, the Human Performance Resources by CHAMP. They have it's their SOCOM Spiritual Fitness Scale, which is an assessment that we can go through on a personal level and also just kind of on a philosophical level of what we believe, how we're doing in those things. And that will also give us a good place of where we're at. I have another holistic health and fitness, spiritual readiness, self-assessment that I've put together that's on there. And I encourage people to invest a little bit of your time in going over these. What do you have to lose? What's the alternative? You can continue to flounder in a puddle and not get anywhere, or without goals, without assessing where we're at and where we're going, beginning with the end in mind, and then making goals and plans on how to get there, we're not going to get anywhere. And it doesn't matter even which way we're going, because we don't have an end in mind, right? If you think back, maybe dating myself, but hopefully the classic hasn't fallen by the wayside too much, but Alice in Wonderland. And if you remember, at one point, Alice is walking down a forest trail, and she comes upon the Cheshire Cat. And Alice, there's a fork in the road there, and she says, "Which way should I go?" And the Cheshire Cat says, "Well, where are you going?" And she says, "Oh, I don't know." And then the cat responds and says, "Well, then it doesn't matter which way you pick." Right? If you don't know where you're going, if you don't have an end in mind that you're trying to get to, then you can do whatever. And if we really want to be that focused on the immediate in front of us, then we're never going to reach our potential. We're always going to sell ourselves short for the immediate pleasure instead of the small pain of discipline that leads to the investment of wealth beyond our imaginations, whether that's spiritual wealth, physical wealth, temporal, financial wealth. If we're only focused on what's in front of us without that long goal, that's why it's key to check out these assessments or find them. You can look them up. We're just trying to make it, this is the one easy button we'll pass along. They're linked to the show. And assess where you're at, and then set goals and make plans for where you want to go. And tune in for some other episodes, because that's where we'll give you some more specific points on how to do even better.
Absolutely. I love that. And with assessments, I think that's a great analogy, comparing that to Alice in Wonderland, which I don't think is too dated.
Oh, good.
They've done too many renditions, so it's still in the forefront of our culture, I think, hopefully. But with the assessments, it's nice because, we're so used to using them. I'll compare it to the gym setting, right? If you go into the gym every week and you never keep track of what you do, or you don't keep track of the exercises, the weights, the reps, you're never going to have deliberate progression. Maybe you'll get better, but then you'll probably slide back and you'll get better. And it removes that accountability factor. If you're not tracking anything, you can easily throw out excuses, make it someone else's fault. If you're going through and using these resources as a way to hold yourself accountable and to document where you are at a certain point in time, sometimes that physical act of setting aside time, taking pen to paper, going through and actually thinking about where you're doing well, where you have room to improve, it gives you that investment and it gives you that push to want to actually improve those areas. We might know we're not doing that well, but it's not until we write it down and put a number to it or a physical assessment to it that we actually take responsibility for those areas and start to take actionable change. So I guess with that, do you recommend that people do these assessments periodically?
Yeah, definitely periodically. Do them again. Pull out your phone, pull out your calendar, and set a, recurring reminder every 4 months to revisit them. How are you doing, right? Because if all you care about is a flash in the pan, then just do them once. But if you want to consistently measure growth or not growth, right? Ooh, maybe I'm regressing and I really need to refocus on this, then do them reoccurring. On a reoccurring basis, just do them again. I mean, they only take 7 minutes, 5 minutes. The champ one is literally a fill in the bubble multiple choice, and the one that I have is a very short answer, which you can tailor it to yourself a little more, but maybe mine will take you 10 minutes and the champ one will take you 5. So if you don't have time to invest in your spiritual health, I have a question for you. How's that going for you? I'll wait.
You'll be waiting a while.
So take some time, be proactive, begin with the end in mind, and you can do it. And please join us in for the next couple episodes. We'll dive into this some more. Thanks again so much, Maddie, for spending this time with us.
Thanks, Chaplain Woodward, for all of your information and insight into spiritual fitness. And we'll pick up in the next episode.